Alright, I know this movie came out a while ago, but in case you haven't seen it yet, there will be some spoilers in this video. Otherwise, Man of Steel tells the origin of Superman and then shows him fighting General Zod. If you need to know more, go watch Superman 1 and 2. In fact, you should probably go watch those anyway, because they're really good. Anyway, Man of Steel is a very strange movie to try and review. It's got all the individual pieces of a good movie, but it feels like they're put together all wrong. The music is good, the casting and performances are mostly solid, especially Russell Crowe as Jor-El, surprisingly enough. The special effects are really great, with one exception that I'll talk about in a little bit, and I actually thought everything was filmed well, despite everyone on the internet bitching about shaky cam. I appreciate getting a new version of Krypton and all the detail that went into it, and I think taking a slightly different approach with a new version of Superman has a lot of potential. Just for example, I thought the idea that he actually had to adjust to breathing Earth's atmosphere was brilliant. The problem is that the editing feels really schizophrenic, and for all of the interesting ideas that the movie is trying to convey, the scenes actually communicating those ideas are poorly planned out. For starters, a lot of Clark's backstory is told through flashbacks scattered throughout the movie, and there's really no reason we couldn't just see them in order. In fact, there was one flashback shown late in the movie that gives some much needed context for how Clark behaves as an adult, and it really made me wonder, why didn't we see that earlier? This movie really tries to hammer home the idea that Clark needs to hide his abilities so that people don't freak out over the fact that he's an alien, and this is a very good point, by the way, but how does the movie actually handle it? Well, in one scene with Clark working in a diner, he tells a drunk customer to settle down or he'll ask him to leave. When the other guy keeps trying to pick a fight, Clark then walks away. I mean, seriously? You just said you were going to make him leave. Realistically, all you have to do is grab him by the arm and then calmly walk him outside. Instead, Clark destroys the guy's truck and is forced to change his identity and relocate yet again, because that makes so much more sense. During another scene, we see the Kents helping people to safety when a tornado appears in Smallville. When they accidentally leave the dog behind, Clark offers to go take care of it, but Jonathan tells him, "No, I will go." Of course, things go badly and he gets hurt, but before Clark can do anything, Jonathan holds up his hand as if to say, "No, you mustn't save me." And I'm not even kidding. At that point, I actually heard the people sitting behind me in the theater say, "Really?" I mean, I get what you're trying to do, movie, but just like the diner scene, the problem is that there are other obvious ways for Clark to help out without revealing who he is. In fact, this kind of reminds me of The Incredibles, where we see Mr. Incredible's children acting out because they're only ever told to hide their abilities and ignore the problem instead of focusing their energy towards something positive. The young Clark in the flashbacks might be a superpowered alien child, but he's still a child. Why don't you actually teach him something instead of just talking about how great he'll be someday, somehow, when something happens that no one knows about yet? I mean, this movie is so busy gushing over the idea of Superman that it mostly ignores the actual character on the screen. I mean, if you're gonna give us a completely new, distinctly different version of Superman, then you need to develop him as a character. That's probably why one of the few scenes that people generally praise from this movie involves Martha actually helping Clark with his powers. Sadly, scenes like this don't happen often enough, and in this particular case, it was lifted from Smallville. And Smallville actually did it better, because instead of Clark being awkwardly surrounded by his entire class calling him a freak, we see Jonathan teaching him on the farm by improvising a test to help him focus. And I'm sorry, but am I the only one who just completely misses the appeal of Kevin Costner in this movie? I might give Smallville a lot of shit, but I also genuinely appreciate the few elements that it genuinely gets right. And to this day, John Schneider has played the best version of Jonathan Kent ever put to screen. By comparison, Man of Steel's Jonathan Kent is terrible. Costner's performance is over the top at the worst moments, and the way the character is written kinda misses the point of what makes Superman who he is. A big part of the Superman mythos has always been that while Clark has the ability to do whatever he wants, he chooses to help and protect others because he was raised by good people. In this movie, Clark just seems to have a natural inclination towards wanting to help people, while his upbringing is what tells him he should probably just let that school bus full of children die. And this is all before we even get to the big action sequence at the end. Yes, I could go on about how this has nothing to do with any of the themes or philosophies presented throughout the movie, or how the ending ultimately centers on a group of people supposedly being pinned down, even though there's literally nothing stopping them from just running the fuck away. But I know what a lot of people people are going to say, this is the big action scene we've been waiting for in a Superman movie. Isn't that worth something? And you know what? I do appreciate a good action scene. In fact, while everyone's been comparing Man of Steel to the final fight from The Matrix Revolutions, I'll come right out and say that as bad as The Matrix Reloaded and Revolutions were, I still own those DVDs just for the fight scenes. So I'm going to be completely fair here and judge this at face value. The thing is, even then the action kinda sucks, and this is a problem I've had with director Zack Snyder for a while now. When it comes to capturing a visceral sense of action, Snyder did an amazing job with 300, but ever since then the action in all of his movies has been disappointing because the hits never have any impact. I mean, we're at the point where special effects can finally allow us to have these epic superhuman fights with the characters' powers being realized in a way that we've never seen before, at least in this franchise, and yet it feels like I'm just watching a bunch of cartoon characters bounce off each other the whole time. And this goes back to my one complaint about the special effects, which is actually pretty important considering how much it clashes with everything else. Every time the Kryptonian characters would use their super speed or have to jump somewhere, you see them instantly transform from a live actor into a really fake, rubbery looking CG effect. And this almost seems like a nitpick, but it happens a lot, and it's bad. Now, as I tried to make it clear at the beginning, there is some good stuff here, but the entire package is kind of a mess. Just like the chest hair that keeps popping up whenever Clark's in the supersuit. Seriously, man, shave that shit before you put the costume on. In the end, I do think this movie's a little stronger than Superman Returns, if only because it at least tries to have its own identity. Unfortunately, it's a movie that I find myself liking less and less the more I think about it. In an earlier video, I somewhat jokingly gave Man of Steel the lone task of not sucking, and after seeing the movie, I'm honestly still not sure if it actually achieves that goal.